The colony ship Wanderer's Hope moved slowly through the empty darkness of space, like a giant metal whale swimming through an endless ocean of stars. Inside its cold steel walls, 3,000 human beings slept in frozen pods, dreaming of a new world and a fresh start. Far from the crowded cities of Earth, Captain Park Daesung stood alone on the bridge watching the distant planet grow larger on the main screen. His dark eyes reflected the blue and green colors of their destination world. After 18 long months of travel through the void, they were finally close to their new home. Lieutenant Kim Yuna walked up beside him and checked the readings on her control panel. She was a small woman with sharp, intelligent eyes and quick hands that danced across the buttons and switches. "The atmosphere looks perfect," she said with a hint of excitement in her voice. "The oxygen levels are even better than Earth. We chose well." Captain Daesung allowed himself a small smile. It was rare for him to show emotion, but today was special. Today, they would make history as the first humans to settle on a world outside their own solar system, begin waking the first wave of colonists. He ordered engineers and construction teams first. "I want boots on the ground within 48 hours." Yuna nodded and turned to relay the orders when suddenly every alarm on the bridge started screaming at once. Red lights flashed in warning. Sounds filled the air like angry hornets. "What is happening?" Daesung demanded, stepping forward. To the main console, 3 objects just appeared on our sensors. Yuna reported, her fingers flying across the controls. "They came out of nowhere, Captain. No warning at all. They are big, and they are coming fast." Put them on screen. The main display flickered and changed. Where there had been empty space, now floated 3 massive vessels, unlike anything humans had ever seen. They were not built from metal or plastic. They looked alive. Their hulls curved and twisted like the bodies of deep-sea creatures. Strange lights pulsed along their surfaces like blood flowing through veins. Communications Officer Lee Hyun-woo tried desperately to establish contact. He sent greetings in every human language. He transmitted mathematical patterns and simple images. He broadcast peaceful messages on every frequency. What came back was not words. It was a sound that made every person on the bridge feel cold terror in their bones. A high-pitched hunting call that spoke of hunger and death and ancient predatory instinct. Hyun-woo went pale and pulled off his headphones. "They are not responding to our messages, Captain. I do not think they want to talk." The alien ships moved with terrible speed, surrounding the Wanderers, Hope like wolves circling a wounded deer. Daesung ordered the engines to full power, but their colony ship was never built for speed or combat. It was a vessel of hope, not war. A beam of sickly green light shot from the lead alien vessel and struck the Wanderer's Hope. Every system on the bridge went dead. The lights failed. The engines stopped. Even the emergency power flickered and died in the sudden darkness. Daesung heard the screams. The aliens did not board through the airlocks like civilized beings would. They burned through the hull in a dozen places at once, pouring into the ship like hungry insects. The creatures were tall and thin with too many joints in their limbs. Their faces had no eyes, only wide mouths filled with needle teeth. They moved fast and they moved quiet. Security Chief Kwon Minho tried to organize a defense. He gathered every guard and every weapon on the ship. They formed a line in the main corridor and opened fire when the first creatures appeared. The bullets did nothing. The aliens wore some kind of living armor that absorbed the impacts. They kept coming, walking through the gunfire like it was rain. Minho watched his people fall one by one, grabbed by long clawed hands and dragged screaming into the darkness. "We cannot stop them," he shouted into his radio. "Fall back and seal the sections. Save who you can." Daesung worked frantically in the darkness of the bridge, using emergency tools to restore partial power. He managed to bring the internal sensors back online, and what he saw made his heart stop. The aliens were not killing the colonists. They were taking them, dragging them alive toward the holes in the hull, loading them onto the alien ships like cargo. Yuna stood beside him watching the same terrible images. "Why are they taking them alive?" she whispered. Daesung did not answer because the only answer he could think of was too horrible to speak aloud. He made a decision then, a terrible choice that would haunt him for the rest of his life. He activated the emergency bulkheads, sealing off the sections where the aliens were hunting. He trapped 200 colonists with the creatures, but he saved the rest. Wanderer's Hope shuddered as the alien ships detached, taking their prizes with them. The hunting call echoed through the corridors one final time, and then they were gone. For a long moment, no one moved or spoke. The survivors sat in the darkness, breathing hard and trying to understand what had just happened to them. "Get me a damage report." Daesung finally said, his voice flat and cold. Yuna checked her instruments with shaking hands. "Hull breaches in 12 sections. Main engines offline. Life support running on backup power. We have lost contact with half the ship." "How many?" she asked, not wanting to hear the answer. Daesung closed his eyes. 217 people. Taking the bridge fell silent again. Somewhere in the distance, a child was crying. Youngwoo managed to repair the long-range communications array. He looked up at the captain with exhausted eyes. "I can send a message to Earth. It will take months to arrive, but they will know what happened to it," Daesung ordered. "Tell them everything. The ships, the creatures, the way they hunted us. Earth needs to know what is out here." As Hyun-woo began his transmission, Yuna approached the captain. She had been studying the sensor data from the attack, analyzing the alien technology. "Captain," she said quietly, "those ships, they were not scouts or explorers. They were hunting vessels. Everything about their design says predator. I think they have done this before. Many times before." Daesung looked at the empty space where the alien ships had disappeared. His hands curled into fists at his sides. "They treated us like animals," he said. "Like we were nothing but food. We were not prepared," Yuna replied. "We came out here looking for a new home. We never imagined we would find something like this." "No," Daesung agreed. "We did not imagine it. But now we know. Now Earth will know. And I promise you, Lieutenant, whoever these creatures or whatever they want, they made a mistake." Tadayuna looked at him, waiting for him to continue. "They let survivors escape," he said. "They let us see what they are. And humans have a very long memory for enemies." Around them, the crippled ship drifted in the darkness. 2,800 colonists huddled in fear, not knowing if the hunters would return. On the distant planet below, their dream of a new world waited untouched, unaware of the nightmare that had just visited the system. But in the cold depths of space, the message was already traveling toward Earth, traveling toward a species that had spent its entire history learning one lesson above all others. When something hunts you, there is only one way to survive. You become the hunter instead. The message from the Wanderer's Hope reached Earth on a cold winter morning. It traveled across the vast emptiness between stars, taking 4 months to arrive. By the time the first radio dishes picked up the signal, the survivors of the attack were still drifting helpless in space, waiting for rescue that might never come. Admiral Choi Seung-jin was the first military officer to hear the transmission. He sat alone in his office at United Nations Space Command headquarters, listening to Captain Park Daesung's voice describe the horror of that day. When the recording ended, he played it again. Then he played it a third time. His hands were shaking when he finally picked up the phone. Within hours, every world leader was awake and connected to an emergency video conference. Presidents and prime ministers, generals and scientists all stared at their screens with pale faces as they listened to the same recording. "This is not possible," the American president said. "We have been searching for intelligent life for centuries. Now you are telling me it found us first and it wants to eat us," the Russian president added grimly. Admiral Seung-jin stood before the assembled leaders, his weathered face showing every one of his 60 years. He had fought in 3 wars and commanded fleets across the solar system, but nothing had prepared him for this moment. We have spent the last 72 hours analyzing every piece of data from the Wanderer's Hope, he began. What we have learned is disturbing. He activated a holographic display showing the alien vessels in terrible detail. The organic curves and pulsing lights made several viewers look away in disgust. Dr. Ji Young led the analysis team. Soong Jin continued. She has spent her career studying theoretical xenobiology. Doctor, please share your findings. Ji Young stepped forward. She was a small woman in her 40s, with gray streaking her black hair and dark circles under her eyes from days without sleep. We have given these creatures a name, she said. We are calling them the Vrek based on the sound patterns in their hunting call. And I must be clear about what we are dealing with here. These are not explorers. They are not scientists or diplomats. They are apex predators. She changed the display to show anatomical diagrams based on the brief footage captured during the attack. Every aspect of their biology is designed for hunting, she explained. Their bodies are built for speed and strength. Their senses can detect prey in complete darkness. Their social structure appears to be based entirely on the hunt. They do not build or create or trade. They only take. What about their technology? Someone Ji Young shook her head. Their technology is biological. Grown, not built. Their ships are living creatures modified over thousands of years to serve as hunting vessels. Their weapons are organic compounds, acids, and paralytic agents. Everything they have comes from consuming other species and adapting what they find. She paused, and her voice grew quieter. We analyzed the partial footage recovered from the ship. I do not recommend viewing it, but I can tell you what happened to the colonists who were taken. The Vrek do not just kill their prey. They process them. They use every part. The Vrek have been doing this for a very long time to a great many species. The silence that followed was absolute. Admiral Soong Jin stepped forward again. Our deep space sensors have detected something else. A fleet of wrecked vessels, approximately 40 ships heading toward our solar system. Based on their current speed, they will arrive in 14 months. 14 months, the Chinese premier repeated. What can we possibly do in 14 months? Everything, Soong Jin replied. We do everything the world changed overnight. For the first time in human history, every nation on Earth united under a single purpose. Old enemies became allies. Ancient grudges were set aside. Borders opened and resources flowed freely between countries that had spent generations in conflict. General Han Mi-rae was appointed commander of Earth Unified Defense Forces. She was a tall, stern woman with a reputation for demanding the impossible and somehow achieving it. Within a week, she had organized the largest military mobilization in human history. We cannot hide, she told her command staff. We cannot run. We cannot negotiate with creatures that see us as livestock. Our only option is to fight, but we have never fought an alien enemy before. One of her officers protested. We do not know their weaknesses. Then we will find them, Mi-rae replied. That is what humans do. We adapt. We learn. We overcome. Across the globe, factories that had built cars and phones and consumer goods were converted to produce weapons and ships. Scientists who had studied medicine and physics and chemistry now worked on military projects. Every able-bodied adult was given a choice to serve in whatever way they could. Dr. Yumbai led the team that cracked Vrek communication frequencies. She was young for such responsibility, barely 30 years old, but her mind worked faster than anyone else on the project. They do not encrypt their signals, she reported with grim satisfaction. They have never needed to. No species has ever lived long enough to use their communications against them. We can hear everything they say to each other. What are they saying? Admiral Soong Jin asked. Dumbai translated her notes. They are excited. They talk about us like we talk about discovering a new fishing ground. They have names for different human body types based on how we taste. They are already arguing about which hunting clans will get the best territories on Earth. Sung Jin felt his stomach turn, but he kept his face calm. Good. Let them keep talking. Record everything. I want to know every weakness, every fear, every division in their ranks. In the lunar shipyards, Commander Shin Tae-ho oversaw the construction of humanity's first war fleet. Ships that had been designed for exploration and mining were stripped down and rebuilt for combat. New vessels designed purely for destruction rose from the assembly lines. The wreck rely on biological weaponry, Tae-ho explained to his engineering teams. They have never faced kinetic weapons, nuclear payloads, or coordinated fleet tactics. Their armor is organic. It can stop teeth and claws, but what about a tungsten rod traveling at 20 kilometers per second on military bases around the world? Soldiers trained for a war unlike any humans had fought before. Sergeant Major Kwon Jae-min drilled his Marines in zero-gravity combat, close quarters fighting and shipboarding tactics. The Vrek think we are soft, he told his troops. They think we will scatter and scream when they come for us. They do not know what humans have done to each other throughout our history. They do not know about our wars and our violence and our terrible capacity for destruction. He smiled coldly, and it was not a pleasant expression. They picked a fight with the wrong species, and we are going to make them regret it. As the months passed and the Vrek fleet drew closer, something unexpected happened. The fear that had gripped humanity began to transform. It became anger. It became determination. It became a cold, burning desire for justice. The Vrek had taken 217 colonists from the Wanderer's Hope, fathers and mothers, sons and daughters, people with dreams and hopes and futures that had been stolen from them. Humanity would not forget, and humanity would not forgive. The clock was ticking, and every human on Earth knew it. 14 months had seemed like an eternity when the warning first arrived. Now, with only 6 months remaining before the Vrek fleet reached the solar system, the time felt like nothing at all. But humanity had never been a species that gave up easily on the dark side of the moon. Hidden from any watching eyes, the shipyards worked around the clock. Commander Shin Tae-ho had not slept more than 4 hours a night since the project began. His eyes were red and his body was exhausted, but his mind burned with purpose. The Vrek are overconfident, he explained to Admiral Sung Jin during one of his rare breaks. They have been apex predators for so long they have forgotten what it means to be prey. Every aspect of their technology is designed for offense. They have no real defensive capabilities. How do we exploit that? Sung Jin Asked-Taho pulled up a holographic display showing the latest ship designs. We hit them hard and fast from multiple angles at once. Their hunting instincts tell them to chase fleeing prey. They do not know how to handle an enemy that stands and fights back. He highlighted a sleek warship on the display. This is the Indomitable class. Heavy armor, multiple weapon systems, nuclear-tipped missiles that can punch through their organic hulls. We have 30 of them ready and another 50 in production. What about fighters? Tae-ho smiled grimly. The Vrek have never faced small attack craft. Their weapons are designed to take down large, slow-moving targets. Our pilots will fly circles around them. On Earth, the training never stopped. Sergeant Major Kwon Jae-min pushed his Marines harder than any soldiers had ever been pushed before. They trained in zero-gravity simulators until moving in space became as natural as walking on solid ground. They practiced close-quarters combat until their reflexes were faster than thought. They learned to operate in complete darkness, using only sound and touch to navigate you. We'll board their ships, he told them during one brutal session. You will fight them in corridors designed for their bodies, not ours. They will be faster than you. They will be stronger than you. But you will be smarter, and you will not stop until every one of them is. Dead Private Yoon Soo-yeon collapsed against the wall, breathing hard. She was one of the youngest Marines in the unit, barely 20 years old, but she had volunteered the day after the attack became public. Knowledge her older brother had been on the Wanderer's Hope. He was one of the 217 Sergeant Major, she gasped. How do we kill something we have never seen in person? Jaemin crouched beside her. His voice was surprisingly gentle for such a hard man. Everything dies private. Everything bleeds. The Vrek have just forgotten that it can happen to them. The Vrek have just forgotten that it can happen to them. We are going to remind them the laboratories around the world. Scientists worked on weapons that had only existed in theory before. Dr. Baek Jung led a team studying captured biological samples from the Vrek raid debris that had been found floating near the crippled colony ship there. Cellular structure is remarkable, she reported. It adapts to threats almost instantly. Conventional poisons and diseases would be useless against them. Then, we do not use conventional weapons, her colleague suggested. Young nodded slowly. The Vrek have spent millions of years evolving to dominate their environment, but they have never encountered our environment. Specifically, they have never encountered our diseases. She held up a vial of murky liquid. This is a modified strain of a common earth fungus, completely harmless to humans. But based on our analysis, it should be devastating to Vrek biology. Their adaptive immune systems have no reference point for it. How do we deliver it? Chi Young smiled. We put it in the air recyclers of their ships. They will breathe it in without even knowing. By the time symptoms appear, it will be too late. In space, the survivors of the Wanderer's Hope had finally been rescued. A fast military ship had reached them 3 months after the attack, bringing supplies and reinforcements. But Captain Park Dae-sung refused to return to Earth. Give me a ship, he demanded. Any ship. I do not care how small. I am going to track those creatures back to wherever they came from. Admiral Sung-jin considered the request. Sung, you have been through a terrible ordeal. No one would blame you for stepping back. Dae-sung met his eyes without flinching. They took my people, Admiral. They treated us like cattle. I watched families torn apart. I heard children screaming as they were dragged away. Do not ask me to sit safely on Earth while others fight. Sung-jin nodded slowly. Very well, Captain. I am giving you command of a new scout vessel. Your mission is to gather intelligence on Vrek movements and report back. Do not engage unless absolutely necessary. Dae-sung saluted. Understood, Admiral, but they both knew that if Dae-sung got the chance, he would do more than observe. As the final weeks before the invasion counted down, humanity made its last preparations. Evacuation plans were drawn up for major cities. Underground shelters were stocked with supplies. Children were taught what to do if the enemy broke through the orbital defenses. But there was something else too. Something that surprised the military commanders who had expected panic and chaos. People gathered in public squares and parks. They held hands and sang songs and told stories about what it meant to be human. Old grudges were forgiven. Long-lost family members were contacted. People who have been strangers became friends. If we are going to fight for humanity, one young woman said at a gathering, so then we should remember what humanity means. Not just survival, but love, compassion, the ability to face the darkness. Together, General Han Mi-rae watched these gatherings with something approaching hope. She had expected fear to tear society apart. Instead, it had brought people together. They think we are prey, she murmured to herself. They have no idea what they have. Awakened in the final week before the Vrek fleet entered the solar system, Admiral Sung-jin addressed the combined military forces of Earth. His image was broadcast to every ship, every base, every bunker where defenders waited. We did not ask for this war, he said. We went into space seeking knowledge and new homes. We extended our hands in peace, and they answered with violence. They see us as livestock to be harvested. They do not understand what we are. He paused, letting his words sink in. Humanity has faced extinction before. Ice ages, plagues, wars that threaten to destroy us. Every time we have survived. Every time we have grown stronger. The Vrek are about to learn why. His voice hardened with cold determination. They made a mistake when they attacked our people. They made a mistake when they let survivors escape to warn us. And they made the biggest mistake of all when they gave us time to prepare across the solar system. 300 warships powered up their engines. Fighter pilots climbed into their cockpits. Marines checked their weapons one final time. Tomorrow, Sung Jin concluded, we show the galaxy what happens when you hunt humanity in the darkness between planets. The Vrek fleet approached. They came with confidence born of 6,000 years of easy victories. They came expecting terrified prey that would scatter and hide. They had no idea what was waiting for them. The Vrek fleet emerged from faster-than-light travel in a burst of twisted light and impossible colors. 40 hunting vessels spread across the void like a pack of wolves entering a new territory. Their organic hulls pulsed with eager anticipation. Their sensors reached out, searching for the warm bodies of prey. What they found instead was a wall of steel and fire. Admiral Choi Sung Jin stood on the bridge of the Indomitable, watching the enemy appear on his tactical display. Around him, 300 human warships held formation near the orbit of Mars. Weapon systems hummed with barely contained power. Missile tubes stood loaded and ready. Every gun was pointed at the approaching enemy. Tactical analysis. Sung Jin commanded, his voice calm and steady. Lieutenant Im Soo Min studied her instruments with wide eyes. Sir, they are not slowing down. They are actually accelerating toward us. Their formation suggests they expect us to scatter. Can they see our fleet? They must be able to see us, Soo Min replied. But I do not think they understand what they are looking at. Their communications are full of excitement. They think we have gathered in one place to make harvesting easier. Sung Jin allowed himself a grim smile. Then let us educate them. All ships weapons free. Fire at will. The first volley of missiles launched from every human vessel at once. Thousands of warheads shrieked through the darkness toward the Vrek fleet. Nuclear fire and kinetic devastation packed into every one. The Vrek had never faced missiles before. Their prey throughout history had fought with teeth and claws, with primitive weapons that bounced harmlessly off their living armor. They had no point defense systems because they had never needed them. They had no evasive tactics because nothing had ever given them reason to evade. 8 Vrek ships died in the opening seconds. The nuclear warheads detonated against their organic hulls, burning through in brilliant flashes of white-hot destruction. The kinetic rounds punched holes straight through vessels that had seemed invincible. Atmosphere and fluids sprayed into space as the wounded ships tumbled out of formation. On the Vrek command vessel, the hunt leader stared at its sensors in disbelief. For the first time in its ancient life, it felt something it did not recognize. It felt fear. The prey is fighting back, it broadcast to the remaining ships. This is not possible. Nothing fights back, but humanity was just getting started. Captain Nohana led the fighter squadrons into the chaos. Her squadron of small, fast attack craft dove between the massive wreck vessels, striking at weak points identified by months of careful analysis. Stay on them, she commanded her pilots. Do not let them regroup. Hit them and move. They cannot track us if we keep moving. The Vrek biological weapons were designed to capture large, slow targets. They fired streams of paralytic acid and clouds of toxic gas. But Hannah and her pilots were too fast and too maneuverable. They danced through the enemy fire like leaves in a hurricane, never staying in one place long enough to be caught. Lieutenant Chai Min-jun flew on Hannah's right wing. He targeted the connection points between a Vrek vessel main body and its weapon appendages. His guns tore through the organic material, severing limbs from the beast ship. Got another one, he reported, watching the crippled vessel spin helplessly. The Vrek scattered, trying to escape the unexpected assault. Their hunting formation broke apart as individual ships fled in different directions. They had never retreated before in their entire history as a species. They did not know how to do it properly. Admiral Sungjin watched the enemy fleet dissolve into chaos. "Press the advantage," he ordered. "All capital ships advance. Do not let them recover." The Indomitable led the charge. Its main guns fired continuous streams of tungsten rounds that tore through wreck hulls like paper. Missile after missile launched from its tubes, each one finding a target among the panicking enemy on the ground assault carrier. Fury of Earth Sergeant Major Quan Jae-min gathered his Marines in the boarding pod bay. Through the hole they could hear the distant thunder of weapons fire. They could feel the vibrations of battle shaking the shipboarding target acquired, the ship computer announced. Disabled wreck vessel 400 meters off starboard. Jae-min checked his weapon one final time. "Remember your training," he told his troops. "They have never been boarded before. They will not know how to defend against us. But they are still dangerous. Stay alert and watch each other's backs." The breaching pods fired, launching the Marines across the gap between ships. They struck the wreck hull and burned through with plasma cutters designed specifically for organic material. Private Yoon Su Yeon was the first through the breach. She found herself in a corridor made of something that looked like muscle and bone. Strange fluids dripped from the walls. The air smelled of blood and something else. Something alien that made her stomach turn. "Contact," she shouted. As a wreck warrior appeared at the end of the corridor. The creature was tall and thin with many limbs and a mouth full of needle teeth. It moved faster than anything that Sai should be able to move. But Su Yeon was ready. She opened fire with her automatic rifle, pumping round after round into the charging alien. The wreck staggered. Its organic armor tried to adapt to the damage, but there was too much too fast. It fell to the ground, twitching, and then went still. "They can die," Su Yeon breathed. "They actually die, of course. They die," Jae-min said, moving past her down the corridor. "Everything dies. Now move. We have a ship to take." The Marines swept through the wrecked vessel, clearing corridor after corridor. They found the creature that served as the ship pilot merged directly into the walls of the control center. They found chambers full of empty cages that had once held prey from a dozen different worlds. They found things that would give them nightmares for years, but they did not stop. They could not stop. Not until the ship was theirs. Outside, the battle continued for 11 brutal hours. The human fleet pursued the scattered wreck, hunting them down one by one. Captain Park Dae-sung and his scout vessel tracked fleeing enemies and reported their positions to the strike teams. He watched with cold satisfaction as each blip on his screen winked out of existence. "For the Wanderers," Hope he said quietly each time one died. "For everyone you took." When the last weapons fell silent, 32 wreck ships had been destroyed. The remaining 8 fled into faster-than-light travel, broadcasting distress signals back toward their homeworld. They left behind debris and bodies, and the shattered remains of their reputation as unstoppable hunters. Humanity had lost 47 ships and 12,000 brave souls. The cost was terrible, but the victory was absolute. Admiral Sungjin stood on his bridge, looking out at the scattered wreckage of the enemy fleet. His hands were steady, but his heart was racing. "It is over," Su Min reported. "They are gone." "We won," Sungjin replied. "This battle is over. But the war has just begun. Those ships that escaped will return to their homeworld. They will tell their people what happened here. And then the wreck will have a choice." "What choice is that?" Sungjin turned to face his crew. "They can accept that the galaxy has changed. That humanity is not prey to be harvested. Or they can send a larger fleet and try again. And if they send a larger fleet, then we will destroy that one too. And the next. And the next after that. Until they understand that the age of the hunters is over." Across the solar system, celebrations erupted. Humanity had faced its greatest threat and survived. They had proven that they could fight back against the darkness that lurked between the stars. But even as people cheered and wept with relief, the military commanders were already planning the next phase. The Vrek would not simply accept defeat. They would come again with greater numbers and darker intentions, unless humanity struck first, unless the prey became the hunter.